According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, misogyny refers to the hatred of, aversion to, or prejudice against women or girls. Created by Kimberly Crenshaw, intersectionality refers to the overlapping of two or more identities possessed by an individual, and in turn, the social inequities that may or may not result in. What might these two definitions have in common? Well, Misogynoir, coined by activist, author, and professor at Northeastern University, Moya Bailey, describes the unique anti-black racist misogyny that black women experience. The intersection of both the identity of being a woman and being black, and the racist and sexist notions that they have to face, links these two terms into one, misogynoir. Going more in depth on misogyny, it refers to the social inequities that women of all races face, whether it be the gender wage gap currently existing within the United States or throughout popular culture and general stereotyping of women. This term originally derives from the 17th century feminist play in response to an anti-women pamphlet produced at the time in which the main character is named Misogynos. Additionally, in a TED Talk given at TED Women 2016, Kimberly Crenshaw defined the term she developed in the 1980s.
Many years ago, I began to use the term intersectionality to deal with the fact that many of our social justice problems like racism and sexism are often overlapping, creating multiple levels of social injustice. Now, the experience that gave rise to intersectionality was my chance encounter with a woman named Emma DeGraffenreid. Emma DeGraffenreid was an African-American woman, a working wife, and a mother. Emma, like so many African-American women, sought better employment for her family and for others. She wanted to create a better life for her children and for her family. But she applied for a job, and she was not hired, and she believed that she was not hired because she was a black woman. Now, the judge in question dismissed Emma's suit. And the argument for dismissing the suit was that the employer did hire African Americans, and the employer hired women. The real problem, though, that the judge was not willing to acknowledge was what Emma was actually trying to say. That the African Americans that were hired, usually for industrial jobs, maintenance jobs, were all men. And the women that were hired, usually for secretarial or front office work, were all white. Only if the court was able to see how these policies came together would he be able to see the double discrimination that Emma DeGraffenreid was facing.
Misogynoir directly refers to what Crenshaw says, in the unique bigotry that black women face. Professor Bailey created the term to help define these experiences in the Crunk Feminist Collective, a blog where she discussed the misogyny portrayed towards black women in hip-hop music, with it referring to misogyny and the French term noir, meaning black. In the book, A Black Women's History of the United States, misogynoir can be defined as, quote, a term used to describe gendered, anti-black violence ranging from police beatings and murders of unarmed black women, and often the deafening silence surrounding them, which birthed #SayHerName, to the racist targeting of leading black female scholars, attorneys, journalists, and political figures. In fact, this carries into today's hip-hop and other elements of the media atmosphere, including the actions of abuser and former musician R. Kelly and the younger black women he abused, largely facing no impunity until fairly recently, with Surviving R. Kelly. Misogynoir manifests itself in everyday stereotyping as well, with black girls commonly viewed as older, more mature, and more sexually advanced than their white counterparts. They are often overtly sexualized, viewed as threatening or angry when expressing themselves, often slotted into roles of sassy, angry, strong, or the latter, overly sexual, amongst a plethora of other emotional and physical-based stereotyping aimed at black women. This stereotyping comes with the ongoing struggles black women face in terms of healthcare, housing, education, and employment, among other needs. While coined by Moya Bailey between 2008 and 2010, misogynoir and this unique discrimination can trace itself back throughout history. One primary example being Sojourner Truth's 1851 speech at the Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio.
May I say a few words? I want to say a few words about this matter. I am a woman's rights. I have as much muscle as any man, and I can do as much work as any man. I have plowed and reaped and husked and chopped and mowed. And can any man do better than that?
Even Truth's speech faced its own misogynoir, with an inaccurate version being published 12 years later, adding a false Southern slave dialect to her speech and misrepresenting the words she spoke in the original transcript. Also, black women of Hollywood such as Ethel Waters and Hattie McDaniel faced specific typecasting relying on racial and sexist stereotypes of the, quote, sexy and sultry albeit exotic figures, unquote, or as, quote unquote, mammy maids. Activist Polly Murray coined the term Jane Crow, angered by the sexist ideas and practices of Howard University and the civil rights movement, as women's leadership roles were being stunted. So while coined in the mid-2000s, black women have been facing the unique discrimination defined by the term misogynoir throughout this country's history and the world over. Misogynoir continues to exist in the hip-hop industry, like Moya Bailey originally discussed, and outside that realm in many aspects of a black woman's experience. However, activists in their actions are still pushing for a change, making sure that their voices are not kept silent, as they have been throughout history.